Antarctica's vertical cliffs, which deny humans access to the continent, have repeatedly frustrated explorers. But despite repeated challenges, humans have succeeded in exploring Antarctica. In May, Antarctica experiences the onset of winter and dark nights. And stories begin to emerge from around the world about the existence of a flower of light. Even when the sun is shining, Antarctica is a harsh place to explore. To explore Antarctica during the polar night was not a challenge, it was suicide. So people thought it was just someone's imagination. But when Emmet, the world's richest man, is told that the flower can grant any wish, he's even more determined to find it. He had an elderly mother who was losing her memory to Alzheimer's. His mother didn't recognize him at all, and he had to feel a great loss. Emmet knew he couldn't bring back his mother's youth, but he wanted to give her back at least some of her lost memories. He didn't know when the last day would come for him and his mother, but he wanted her to have a moment on her deathbed to remember him. In 1913, Emmet recruits an expedition to Antarctica, advised by Roald Amundsen, and sets out on his way. Everyone around him discouraged him from taking a trip to Antarctica. That's because he had no idea where the flower he was trying to find was. His Antarctic expedition seemed to be risking their lives on a seemingly impossible challenge. The mission was to explore the entire continent of Antarctica in search of a flower that they weren't sure existed. It was reckless, to say the least. Emmet sets off for Antarctica, even if everyone stops him. With the uncertainty of exploration, success, and survival, with all his fears behind him, Emmet sets out to explore Antarctica. Emmet's nervousness grew as he thought about his mother. But he doesn't let his emotions get the best of him, and he stays calm and carries on with his Antarctic expedition. Over the course of the 7-year journey, many of the expedition's members lose their lives, and Emmet himself is seriously injured, but he finally discovers the rumored flower. It was a small flower that glowed white in an icy cave. Emmet tried to touch it, but it was untouchable. And like a mirage, the flower disappears before his eyes. But that wasn't the end of Emmet's journey. With most of the world's wealth, what Emmet wanted was to spend time with his parents and relive the memories. But in a poor family, his father was forced to work in factories and bars for low pay. No holidays, and only 3 hours of sleep every day. On the day of Emmet's 10th birthday, his father would eventually pass away from overwork. Emmet's mother had to fill the void left by his father, resulting in a poorer, harder life. Fortunately, Emmet was smart and had a huge pool of capital that never dried up. The problem was it was too late, as his mother's health was failing just as quickly as his father's. On the one hand, maybe Emmet's trip to Antarctica in search of wish-granting flowers maybe it's a choice to run away from a past and present he can't change. 7 years was a long, long time to waste if his mother could be happy with the time they had together, even if she had lost her memory. But Emmet was a man of action, never satisfied, always wanting more. So he couldn't make the moderately compromise in his mind. The moment the flower disappears, Emmet realizes that. He then goes back in time to the moment he boards the ship for his Antarctic expedition. Emmet tells the crew assembled for the Antarctic expedition that he's already found the flowers. He pays 10 times the amount he promised to the Antarctic expedition assembled for him, and heads home. Returning home, Emmet spends 12 happy years with his mother, who has lost her memory. He thinks that even if his mother can't remember, he can remember for her. A flower that blooms only at polar night in Antarctica was once known as the wishing flower, although its actual existence was debated. When Emmet wrote about his experience in his autobiography, he called it the flower of hope, not the flower of wishes. There was a time when he seemed to have the most successful life in the world, but he was deeply frustrated because he couldn't have what he wanted most. he took on impossible goals even in desperate circumstances. And the flowers he found on death's doorstep gave him hope for the future. There are still explorers who take Emmet's word for it and want to find the flower in Antarctica. Conversely, those who don't believe Emmet's story say he had a dream before boarding the ship that was as vivid as reality. Some say that's how Emmet must have confused dreams with reality. But to Emmet, it didn't matter whether the flower existed or not. So he stuck with no comment, regardless of all the interpretations and evaluations in the world. The flower, which only appears to people who have been challenged, knocked down, and are in a hopeless situation, was not unique to Antarctica. That flower can always bloom in your heart too. Believe you can make your own wishes come true. What Emmet wanted to tell people wasn't about whether the flower was real. Whether the flower existed or not, he had found the flower of hope he needed most. His deepest wish to be fulfilled was achieved through enlightenment and a shift in perception.